Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dusty Rhodes, Hamilton County Auditor, and I am the chair of the Joint Economic Development Review Council. I want to welcome you to our meeting and ask each of the other members to introduce themselves and their affiliation. So let's start on the right.
Scott Taylor. I'm the representative from the community. I serve on the Zoning Commission of Colerain Township as well as the Financial Advisory Committee.
Jim Thaxton on behalf of Rumpke.
I'm David Denny on behalf of the Colerain Chamber of Commerce.
George Joseph with Joseph Automotive.
Bill Angel on behalf of Meyer.
Richard France on behalf of Walmart Store.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We have an agenda, and everybody okay with the agenda as you have it? We'll proceed if you are, if there's any objections. Okay?
Yeah.
Alrighty then, let's move on to the presentation of the background information. I believe that Larry Barbier is going to tell us about the economics of this.
Thank you, Dusty. I'm Larry Barbier. I'm the Colerain Township Law Director. I think to start out with, what I'd like to do is just give you a little idea of where we are in the process, because this is something that's totally new that the legislature just recently passed. Colerain Township and the city of Harrison have entered into a proposed JEDZ agreement for a JEDZ zone, which is on the board over there. You can see it goes along Colerain Avenue there, which will be the JEDZ zone. Historically, what has taken place when a JEDZ zone agreement has been entered into or agreed to tentatively is that for 30 days, the documents, the JEDZ contract, the map, the legal description, and the economic development plan are all put in the fiscal officer's office for 30 days so that the public can then review the documents. After those 30 days, there's a public hearing, and then after the public hearing, when the public gets an opportunity to speak about whether or not they think the JEDZ is a good idea, what their thoughts are on the JEDZ and those kinds of things, then the trustees vote sometime after that public hearing as to whether or not to approve the contract. And if the contract is approved, then it goes to the voters. What the legislature has done is they have included now an interim step in the JEDZ process. And what they did is that they created this Joint Economic Review Council. Now, it's my understanding, and I'm just going to read a little bit of the statute as to what the responsibilities of this council are. It says, the purpose of the council is to review the economic development plan included in the Joint Economic Development Zone contract or amendment to the contract, and either approve the plan or disapprove the plan, and provide recommendations to the contracting parties for ways in which the plan may be modified to meet the approval of the council. So it's my understanding that this committee's role is not to give opinion as to whether or not they think the JEDZ itself is a good idea, but rather whether the economic development plan, in other words, what is going to be done with the money from the income tax, whether this economic development plan is a good plan for the use of that money. And the economic development plan is what I'm going to discuss and give you a little bit of background now.
That's kind of a narrow responsibility.
Yes, that's the way I read the statute, and I think because it's always been in the statute, and it still is, that the public really has an opportunity to give their opinion at a big public hearing before the trustees as to whether or not they think the income tax is a good idea. After they give their opinion, after the trustees vote, then it goes to the electors, and they can make their decision as to whether or not they approve of the JEDZ zone. But this is just to say, okay, if in fact the JEDZ zone is created, is this economic development plan that's in front of you, is that a good way to spend the money? And from the perspective of Colerain Township, this money is desperately needed. We have a situation here, and you can see we're talking about an area of Colerain Township. There's no electors, no people who are going to be voting live in that area. It's all commercial. And the idea is that this commercial area needs to have some kind of infrastructure infusion in order to keep the area viable and in order to allow the area to grow. The last time a levy was even on the ballot for roads in Colerain Township was 2001, and it failed. Over the last several years, as most of you probably know or have read in the newspaper, the state government has stopped giving money to local governments, or at least has really curtailed the amount of money that goes to the local governments. The estate tax has been wiped out as far as Colerain Township is concerned. They don't get the same money out of the local government fund that they used to. And in fact, Colerain Township has now lost $1.5 million from their budget that they used to receive from the state. And based on the way the state, what we've been hearing from the governor and the way things have been going in the state, there's no reasonable expectation that this money is going to be replaced. Now, Colerain Township really has a very limited ability to increase the revenue that it's receiving. And one of the very few ways it can do that is through this JEDZ zone. In order for Colerain Township to do the work that is necessary to repair the roads and to replace roads and to do the sidewalks and the curbs and those kinds of things that are needed in Colerain Township, is going to require $2.2 million for a year for the next 15 years. And the money's just not available. In fact, the money, right currently, Colerain Township is operating at a deficit of $600,000 per year. The idea of this JEDZ zone, and you can see that this is to just try to create enough money. It's only going to create $1 million a year is the estimate, so it won't be anywhere near enough money. But to try to create enough money so that at least Colerain Township can get a start on repairing and replacing some of the infrastructure in the JEDZ zone and in the areas immediately adjacent and around the JEDZ zone, so the people that live in those areas can get to the businesses of the JEDZ zone. It's absolutely imperative for Colerain Township to compete with other counties, with other states, for the businesses to be successful in this economic development corridor, that this public infrastructure be repaired and replaced. You can see from reviewing, I believe you all have the economic development plan, and you can see from reviewing it that it is extremely narrowly focused. Colerain Township is not asking for money to pay police officers. It's not asking, even though they patrol the zone, it's not asking for money to pay firefighters who may operate in the zone. Colerain Township in this economic development plan is only asking to use this money for infrastructure in and around the zone that will directly benefit the businesses in the zone. There will be grants given to the corporate taxes of the companies in the zone. There will be grants given to the residents of Colerain Township, so the people who will be taxed will be the people who will really be paying the tax are people who come from outside of Colerain Township, use the roads, go to the businesses, but don't pay any tax in Colerain Township. The idea is to try to find some way, with placing a minimum burden on the residents of Colerain Township, to find some way to repair these roads, replace these roads, fix these sidewalks, and fix this infrastructure in a way so these businesses can continue to operate competitively and so there can be a good environment in this business corridor. And that's the whole intent of this economic development plan. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the economic development plan, but that's, I think I've given you the description of why Colerain Township needs this money and what this money is going to be used for.
Anybody have any questions?
Is that spelled out in the document? I don't see that, the numbers in the document, and is that necessary to be spelled out in the document?
No, the numbers as far as the budget and those kinds of things are not necessary to be in this document. This document is designed to give an idea as to spell out what the money is going to be used for. You have a document in front of you that has information about the roads and about, it has photographs of the conditions of the roads and has information about the budget. So we wanted to present that information to you so you would know why the money is needed. But the purpose of this economic development plan is to let the public and to let you know what the money that's gleaned from the JED is going to be used for.
Anyone else? Okay. Public comment. I've got a couple of people who've signed in. John Kerr, of Ostling Road. Is that right, Mr. Kerr? Okay, I'm sorry.
I understood there was going to be a presentation by both parties to the contract. This meeting, is that correct? City Harrison also.
Mr. Chair, members of the council, we do have Jennifer Eakey here this evening, who is with the City of Harrison. And I don't know if Ms. Eakey has anything she'd like to add to the plan, but we've been working diligently with the City of Hamilton to make sure that everything is in place. I'm sorry, City of Harrison, my apologies. It's an H.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, I should have asked if you had anything to add. But
No. Certainly will equip to provide the service that Colerain is looking for. If someone has a question about the mechanics of it, I can answer, but really we don't vote. It doesn't pass anyone in Harrison other than our city council to approve the contract. So it's really up to the voters and Colerain to make the decision.
thank you.
Okay. I guess I would like to, if I may, reserve the opportunity to ask other questions as deliberations occur and things like that, if possible. If not possible, if this is my only swing at the bat, that's fine also. But
Whatever.
okay. I guess the main thing I wanted to try to find out was, obviously, they've tried to say that this is going to be honed in on infrastructure, and I think that's great. That certainly the township has a need for that. I'm not privy to the document, I guess, that you guys have in front of you, at least as far as photographs and everything. I have the typewritten verbiage of the development plan, but I'm a little foggy on exactly what improvements would be made within the zone. It's the way I understand the law, and I'm not an attorney or even play one on TV, but it's the way I read it is that the majority of the money is supposed to be spent in the zone, that the aim of creating the zone is for the benefit of that zone, and I think that's your charge, is to be sure that that is indeed, what is happening. And the development plan that's presented is pretty broad and general in my estimation with regard to how that money would actually be spent in the infrastructure. So I just ask that you be sure that you're satisfied at the end of this process, that you're comfortable with the direction that those funds are going to be going, and indeed that the zone itself, which I think is the object of the law, is the one being benefited. I've seen personally nothing in the way of an inventory of these township roads within the zone or immediately adjacent to need to be taken care of, or we have the 2 or 3 culverts of this size over here. It's not that detailed, and I understand that it's been a rush thing because this is a brand new law and that we're under some time constraints. So I guess in summary, I just ask that you be sure that you are satisfied that the folks at the zone are the ones that are being ultimately helped by this whole thing if it does go forward, because I think that's really the intent of the law. And if you guys have questions about, is some of this money going to be spent 15 miles from here, and not directly to enhance the zone, make sure you're satisfied, with answers to those questions too.
Thank you. I'd be real satisfied if you'd spend some of the money in Delhi. Do you think you'd do it?
We'll send it right over.
Thank you.
How much you need?
Thanks. The trustees, of course, are ultimately responsible, and I'm sure they're going to work with the administration to make sure that the goals are met and that everything goes the way it's supposed to. Scott Huber of April Drive. Mr. Huber. Thank you for being here. Good evening.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Scott Huber. I'm a resident on April Drive. That's a street in Colerain Township. And I've also worked in Colerain Township for 20 years. I've lived in the township for 40 years, and I've worked in the township for 20 years. The business that I work at is going to be in the zone. But before I get started with my statements, if I'm allowed, I'd just like to make a quick survey of who on this review committee is actually going to have their paycheck reduced by the 1%. Who's going to have it affected? Okay, so there's 3. Mr. Rhodes, do you get to vote on this? Do you?
Yes,
You are
I
a
do.
voter.
That's the way the legislature set it up. Don't
I'm-
ask me why.
I'm just asking a question. I wasn't sure if you were the ringleader or what.
Well, I've often been called that, among other things.
Right. So my point is that you have a minority on this council that are really directly affected by it. None of the trustees are going to pay it. None of the administrators are going to pay it. Everybody that was on the financial advisory committee, they're not paying it. So by far, the vast majority of the people that are making these decisions are not going to pay the 1% tax. And I just want to throw that out to you just to kind of put this in perspective here that, you know, it kind of bothers me more than a little that, you know, this whole thing is being created and drawn up by people that really don't have any skin in the game. So I just want to make that statement. But the real statements I do want to start by saying is that, you know, I agree with Mr. Barbier that from what I've read, I believe that your direction tonight is to determine whether the economic plan is in the best interest of the zone. That's what I think you're here to determine tonight.
That's right.
So I just want to try to influence you a little bit that I'm against the plan, and I want to try to get you to go against the plan too, if I can do that. Number one, I think the plan is very vague. I think Mr. Kerr kind of alluded to that, and I agree with him. You know, there's very broad expectations of what this plan is supposed to do. And, you know, I almost get the feeling that the township wants to play the role of land developer, that they want to go out there and they actually want to create infrastructure and they want to develop property. And, you know, I don't know that that's a good thing for the township to be doing. And, you know, there might be other, I guess, other projects that may affect the community and it may better the community. But I think you need to remember that you're here to determine what's best for the zone, not what's best for the community. So I hope you keep that in mind. The plan heavily emphasizes infrastructure improvements. Well, the roadways that are in the zone are a vast majority of them are county roads, they're state roads, they're not township roads. The utilities are not owned by the township. The sanitary sewer is MSD. The storm sewer is Public Works. The water main is Cincinnati Water Works. We all here as residents of Hamilton County, we already pay fees for that infrastructure. We all pay taxes to the state for the Colerain Avenue. We pay taxes to the county. MSD, we all know that MSD is hitting us up for fees. We heard the Waterworks wants to raise their fees. We pay a stormwater fee. We pay a soil and water fee. So we're already paying these fees for infrastructure, and now a select group of us are going to be asked to pay an additional 1%. This isn't just a 1% tax. You know, I get that when I was talking to some people, they're like, well, it's just a 1% tax. Well, it's not. It's an additional 1% tax because we're already paying infrastructure fees. I also want you to know that Colerain Township has a sidewalk fund in place that when developers do development and they don't want to put sidewalk on their public roads, they have to pay into the sidewalk fund. And Mr. Joseph, you should know that with all the development you've been doing over the years, you've paid a lot of money into the sidewalk fund. Well, where is that money? You know, I mean, there's very few and far instances where we hear about where that money is being used. So again, it's another example where the township has money, or they're supposed to have money to do sidewalk programs. So why another 1% to do that? My last point to try to convince you to turn this thing down is that there really is a better way to do this. There is a joint economic development district, a JED, a GEDD. You're asked to vote on a zone, a JEDZ. But there's another way to do this that I think is better, and that's with a district. And it's very similar to what Liberty Nursing Home did out on Livingston Road. They needed infrastructure. They created their own taxing district, and they tax their employees. But it's on their terms. It's not on the township's terms. And if the businesses want to band together and let's say they want to bury utilities on Colerain Avenue, that's great. I'm all for it. Let's do it. But let's do it as a group of businesses, and let's do it on our terms. Let's not do it through the township and let the township dictate a plan to us. Let's all of us work together, create our own district, and let's do it together as a business. I think that's the best way to do this, if that's really what we're here to do. So those are my reasons why I'm asking you to vote against the plan tonight. If I didn't convince you, I do have some modifications that I'd like you to consider if you think you're going to vote for the zone. Number one, I'd like you to review the language about the grants from the Township CIC. If you read the economic plan, they state in there that the CIC intends to provide grants back to the residents and back to the businesses. I'm asking you to firm that up and say that the CIC guarantees grants, the CIC shall provide the grants. I'd like something to be a little more concrete instead of intends. What I really don't want to see happen is getting into another broken promise like the stadium rollback tax that we're all currently aware of that's kind of been reduced since the county has some issues. Well, that was a promise to us, a promise to the Hamilton County taxpayers. Well, I would like to be sure that Colerain Township doesn't go back on their promise, and I would like to firm that up, that language up, and say, I know for sure that the CIC is going to provide the grant, period. Number two recommendation I'd like to make is that we provide some details about what specific projects we're going to be doing in the zone. What exactly are, and it doesn't have to be all of them. I'd like just to see maybe the top three. What are the top three projects that is going to happen in the zone? What is the bang for the buck for the taxpayer that's going to pay that? I'd just like to see some examples. 3 examples would be good. What the time frame, the completion is, what some estimated costs are. You know, just to know what we're getting. Number 3, in Exhibit B, I think you should consider the language that's in that paragraph. And I know it says that the funds shall not be commingled with additional revenue sources, but I think you should explicitly state that the money should not go into the general fund. It should go in its own separate restricted fund, and it should be used explicitly for the zone, only for the zone. And last, I'd like you to see you put the government complex in the zone. I mean, I think the leaders of this township need to, you know, put skin in the game or have skin in the game and pay the income tax. I don't think that's too much to ask. So I'd like to see this government complex in the zone. So that's really all I have. Again, I thank you for allowing me to make these statements. Again, you know, my belief is community problems need community solutions. I don't think we need to, you know, pick on a select group of people that are trying to do their business in a business corridor when really it's the community that needs to handle these issues. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've got a real quick question. Don't go away. You made a recommendation on Exhibit B for, and as I'm reading it, I was kind of scanning down. It reads, all receipts shall be deposited to a separate zone account, which shall not be mingled with revenue from other sources. Right. And you want it to read how?
I would like to see the word general fund in there, that it shall not be commingled with the general fund. That's kind of what I was getting at, is that the word general fund be in there, and that it's a restricted, there's a specific term for that. It's a separate restricted fund.
Redundant.
Beyond what's required by statute? Isn't there a percentage requirement in the statute, Jim? Or, excuse me, Larry?
There is a percentage requirement in the statute. The statute lays out a lot of the things that he's talking about. In addition to the fact that when he says the community should be involved in this, the community will vote on this.
Right.
It goes to the ballot, it goes to the electors for a ballot.
Yeah.
So, but yes, the statute has specific requirements, and the JEDZ contract follows those specific requirements, as does the economic development plan.
This is not a contract per se, I mean, this is gonna go to trustees. Trustees are gonna firm all the pieces up, and then they're gonna vote on it and bring it to the taxpayer, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
And there will be ample time for input from the community between now and...
Community has 30 days to review all the documents, including this economic development plan. Then there will be a public hearing when the trustees will be here. The community can come and they can express all their reservations or why they think the plan is good. And then the trustees have to vote as to whether or not the JEDZ contract, including the economic development plan, will be approved. All we're here today is about the economic development plan.
Any other questions?
But you need to watch that. This council has the ability to accept, reject, or modify the plan, okay? The trustees don't. The trustees get to say, yes, we're going to approve the plan. No, we're not going to approve the plan. You all, as the council, the way I understand it, that's why I made it to this meeting, because I think this is important. This is where all the action is happening in this commission or this council right here. When it gets to the trustees, you can have a line out the door with all the public input you want. The trustees are just going to say, well, the council gave us this plan. Are we going to vote yes or are we going to vote no? I don't think the trustees can modify the plan. Is that true?
No, I don't think once the plan has been, I think there can be amendments to the JEDZ contract. I don't want to give a legal opinion here in the middle of this meeting. I think there can be some amendments to the JEDZ contract after the public hearing.
Contract, right.
Well, this is going to be an exhibit to the contract.
Okay.
I'm not going to give you an opinion. This is too new for me to give you an opinion as to whether any changes can be made to this economic development plan after this board meets. There is a statute that says what the powers of the board are, what we're doing here today. There's another statute that says there's a hearing and the trustees have the ability to take input from the public and to consider that input, and I don't think that statute says that no changes can be made before it's put on the ballot.
Okay.
I don't know what that means with respect to the economic development plan.
Okay.
This is too new. I'm not prepared to answer that.
Sure. Yeah, I put a lot of weight on this council. I mean, I thought, man, this is my one and only chance to try to sway people to really make a change other than saying, yeah, I support it or no, I don't. I mean, to me, you have the authority to pen changes if you see fit. So, I mean, to me, that's pretty powerful. Okay. So, you know, and I do want to say that, you know, there's a reason the legislature revoked this law is because it's not a good one. So, I mean, the reason we're in this rush here is because this this JEDZ expires at the end of this year, and there's a reason why they voted to revoke it, because
I would suggest that the reason is because they've been waging war on local governments, and particularly townships, because you've got a bunch of people in the administration who would just soon all the townships go away, and you have a metro government which moves all the government farther away from the people, takes your community control away, and, you know, that's the whole deal. I don't know if you know this. You know why Putin took over Crimea? Because he wanted to give them the benefit of shared services. So that's what we keep hearing from these boys in Columbus, but their whole idea is to wage war on local governments, and that sticks in my craw.
I've been to the trustee meetings. I've heard about the you know, the estate taxes and the government fund. I mean, I'm well aware of what this township is going through, but this is not the best solution.
Well,
so that's all I'm saying.
Okay, very good. Anybody else have any other questions for the witness? I have one. Does the zone have to be contiguous? You can't pick out islands in the township and add them to the zone, can you?
But they can, we have it so it's contiguous and there's no electors.
Yeah.
Nobody voting in any of the zones.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? Jim, I guess it's point to call the roll whether or not we approve this to move forward at this point. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, yes, you would need a motion and a second and a roll call.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'll call the roll. Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Denny?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Thaxton?
Rumpke has to abstain from.
Okay. And I'll vote in the affirmative, yes. So it passes to be moved on to the next step. Thank you very much for all your work on this, and thank you folks for participating. I'm sure the comments that you've made are going to be considered as this goes through the process. Thanks to the members for serving. Any other business? I'll accept a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. He moved, I second.
Together on very short notice, and we do appreciate your
You guys did
cooperation.
a nice job putting this together, I'll tell you.